What's going on, everybody? Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Wednesdays. We are back on the Enterprise. As you can see, I've begun the final bit of masking for the top of the saucer. I've been hard at work, though, on the underside of the saucer and the engineering hull, masking all the different areas that we want to go ahead and keep the light gray. We're going to be coming back eventually and overspraying this with a silver gray color, but for right now, we are ready for paint on the bottom and the back. So now we have to do the top. We're going to be using a silver gray color by Vallejo. This is not the model air color, so you do have to thin it quite a bit, but I think it's going to be a really nice color. But before we go ahead and paint anything, like I said, we have to mask in all of these areas here and around the perimeter. We need to make sure that that is sealed. We're going to have to airbrush the entire model. We've already laid down a nice outline of the Tamiya tape. So we're going to take this painter's tape made by a company called Frog, and we're going to then cut this into larger strips and then cut those strips into small rectangles and squares. And then we're going to piece together and overlap the edges so that all of the large fields of color are masked and ready for the overspray of the silver gray. It shouldn't be that difficult to do. I'm going to use my ruler and my X-Acto knife. And I'm going to make these a decent thickness, nothing too thick though. So maybe like 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters. We'll keep that about that size. And I don't want to use the Tamiya tape because Tamiya tape is beautiful for holding curves, whereas this tape here is not so good at holding curves. So we're going to use this for the large fields, and we're going to work on masking the entire top of the saucer. You guys have seen me mask before. You guys know what it's all about to mask, so I'm not going to show that because it's a lot of work. So we're going to go ahead and mask it up. I'll be back and we'll show you the finished product here after I have all the masking tape on. And here it is, guys. The Enterprise is completely 100% masked. We are ready for paint. As you can see here, everything on the bottom, as well as the engineering hull and the top and the back, everything is masked. We are ready for paint. I'm going to put it back on its stand, and we're going to mix up a nice healthy amount of the Vallejo Silver Gray color. We're going to be using probably like 6 parts thinner to 1 part paint because this stuff is thick. So I'm going to mix it up, and we're going to start being able to shoot this thing and get it silver gray. I've mixed up a nice little amount of silver gray with the Tamiya thinner. I've also heard that you can actually use car window washing fluid to thin Vallejo paint. I've never tried that before. If you guys have, let me know if that works. I read that in a forum post actually earlier today, and I thought that might be kind of interesting to try. But I don't want to do anything too crazy because I'm really pushing hard on this model. I don't want to ruin it before I have a chance to check out the colors and how it works out with the aztecing. So we're going to go ahead and cover the entire thing in this silver gray color. Then I'll come back after it's dry, and we're going to pull off the masks, and we're going to see what it looks like. Okay, guys, here we are. I have airbrushed the entire surface with the silver gray color, and I think it looks pretty cool. There are certain areas that are going to be covered in decals, and we're going to have to do some touch-up work, especially here at the bottom of the engineering hull. All this has to be redone, and there has to be some additional aztecing here on this darker gray section. But for the most part, we're looking pretty decent. So now we're going to let this dry, and I kind of wanted to start taking off some of this masking because I'm really anxious to see what this looks like with the silver gray. Now, we don't really have to keep it masked because everything from here on out is going to be just touch-up paint. We're going to have to do some pinstriping. We're going to have to create some reverse masks for larger square patches of very light, kind of almost like a mist of aztecing. We're going to go ahead and let this thing dry, start unmasking, and see where we can go from there. All right, so we are dry, so moment of truth. Let's start unmasking this monster. And you guys know what it's like to unmask, I'm sure, but this is on a scale that I've never had to do before, because not only do I have the larger fields of color masked with the Frog tape, I also have little tiny individual rectangles for the aztecing. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull off all of the large field masks. Then I'm going to come back, and I think I actually might try pulling off a few, maybe take a little section, maybe like a quarter of it, and pull off the aztecing and see how that looks. It should be okay because I don't really need to do any large field painting. It's going to be all detail pinstriping and things like that. So let's go ahead and unmask everything and see how it looks. So keep your fingers crossed, guys. All right, we are approaching the final area right here of the masks. And I think, yeah, this is it. The entire saucer has all of the basic larger masks taken off. So now we have the little tiny aztecing. So let's see what we can do with those. Also, I mentioned pinstriping. I did one pinstripe right here. Well, we have to go ahead and paint all of these different panel lines. We have to paint those in the silver gray. That's just what we have to do. So we're going to start doing that. But first, I want to take off some of these masks for aztecing. I want to see what these look like and if I've completely destroyed this model or if it's going to be passable. So let's just start taking these off. I've got my pin vise with a tiny little pin in the end of it. We're just going to use that and just gently lift up the edges of the masks of the Aztecs and just pop those off. I'm seeing quite a nice, interesting pattern. So I'm going to keep doing this. Let's do about a quarter of the saucer section here. I'll be back and I'll show you what we come up with. All right, guys, what do you say? What do you think? I have unmasked the first quarter right here on the saucer. So you can see the rim, the light gray, the dark gray, it's all unmasked. You have a lot of color poking through. This is exactly what I was trying to do when I first started masking. I wanted to have distinct bands of patterns here and there for different colors showing through. So we can kind of see a very distinct pattern and bands of pattern as well. Like I said, the pinstriping has to be done, but that should be able to be done without having any masks on it, because I'm going to use very thin pieces of tape to form those pinstripes and then just cover it up with the rest of the larger piece of tape and shoot it with the silver gray. So we're going to work section by section all the way around the top of the saucer, the whole underside of the saucer to do. A lot of unmasking needs to be done. We'll do it all off camera because otherwise it's just a lot of time of me poking a little pin and pulling up tape. I don't want you guys to have to sit through that. So we're going to go ahead and call it a day for right now. We'll be back next week and I'll show you guys what I come up with. It took me forever to go ahead and mask this thing. It's going to take me forever to unmask. Next episode, we should have an unmasked Enterprise. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you dig this look. I know it's only a quarter of the top of the saucer, but let's really hope that by the time I finish everything, it's going to look spectacular. Till next time, guys, keep building, and we'll see you soon.